The time is now to architect a life of excellence. What will we do? Who will we become? We decide today. This is LearnDoBecome Radio with April and Eric Perry. Let's move onward and upward together.
Hello and welcome to LearnDoBecome Radio. I'm April Perry and today we're talking about routines. All of us need a solid routines list. And we talk about routines quite a bit here at LearnDoBecome because the things that we do over and over again are what actually help us to create the results that we want as we're architecting lives of excellence. The resources I'm using today in the podcast are from Taryn, who is a member of our LearnDoBecome team. She has done a beautiful job putting all this together, so I'm going to read you her post, talk a little bit more about my own routines and some additional ideas at the end. But if you want to learn more, come to LearnDoBecome.com/episode 48 for episode 48, and we'll include all the links and images and all the awesome stuff that you're going to want right there on the page. All right, I will jump right in and share with you Taryn's post about how to establish an awesome routines list. Hi, I'm Taryn, part of the LearnDoBecome team. And I'd like to share with you how I've developed and continue to develop my basic routines list. Some time ago, I attended an activity where I was asked to make a list of the hats that I wear. I was surprised to realize that I wear more than 15 different hats in my life. Some of those hats or roles don't require much of me. Others require quite a bit. As I was working to create my personal routines list, it helped me to include the roles and responsibilities that I have because they play a big part in how I schedule my time. Before I walk you through my process, I want to mention that I can be very detailed in how I think and approach things. It might be too much for you. That's okay. Take what makes sense to you and run with it. Also, this doesn't need to be done in one sitting. It takes a lot of brain power. You and your brain might need a break now and then. Decision fatigue is real, and we will be making a lot of decisions through this process. My first step was to identify my roles. I am an individual, a wife, a homemaker, a piano teacher, the accompanist for the church choir, just to name a few. And she has a little spreadsheet where she's identified what her role is, the life category, and then also applied it to a step category. Now, she has her Google Sheet ready to share with you, so you could just make a copy and then edit it to meet your needs. That will be available on the show notes page, all right? Moving on. Next up is to figure out what needs to be done within each of these roles. I started with a spreadsheet. I added categories to help me see where the bulk of my time goes. This also helps as I'm looking for projects to complete each month. Then I started asking questions. As an individual, what do I need? I need sleep, food, exercise, self-care. As a choir accompanist, what is required of me? Weekly rehearsals, 1 hour each Sunday. Personal practice time to learn the pieces. Daily practice, 10 to 15 minutes or more, depending on the piece. As a cake decorator, what is required of me? Well, that depends. As a cake decorator, the routine is irregular, but it's a routine nonetheless. Irregular, that doesn't really sound like a routine, does it? But hear me out. When I bake and decorate a cake for someone, I follow the same process each time. I also schedule it as a project because it takes extra time from my schedule, especially if it's a large cake. So although I don't bake a cake every week or even every month, I do follow a routine because it's nearly the same each time. Is anyone hungry for cake now? I want to pause for a moment and just comment on that. I love how she differentiated between a routine and a project, but sometimes there's some overlap. When we can understand that routines and projects are different things, for the most part, projects are one-time things, one-time multi-step tasks that can actually be checked off, and routines are things you do over and over again. It's really important to know how those things work together, like me recording this podcast. This is a routine now that I'm doing on a regular basis, but as I'm setting up a process for recording the podcast, that's a project, right? Okay, we'll keep moving on with Taryn's post. As a homemaker, what is required of me? This one takes up a lot more space in my brain, in my home, and on my schedule. And to be honest, I had a hard time figuring out where to begin. I had tried Fly Lady's method. I printed charts from Pinterest. I signed up for free online courses. How to Stop Drowning in Piles, anyone? That's the class we teach. LearnDoBecome.com/step. One day, I had an idea. I needed to create my own routines according to how my home is set up and how or when I like things to be done. I know this isn't an original idea, but it was exactly what I needed to help me get started. I walked through my home and dictated to my iPhone inside the Notes app what needed to be done in each room. You could also do this with pen and paper or in the Evernote app. Take note of anything and everything that needs to be done. Routines, projects, tasks, everything. Now caution, this is not about beating yourself up over what isn't done or should be done, or if they didn't do it. It's simply about gathering and processing information. Here's a small sample of what my list looked like. And she includes a little written list. Things like in the master bathroom, toilet, floor, shower, tub, closet, rotate clothes, empty garbage, dust, mirror, sink, counter, deep clean Norwex cloths, etc. She also has a list for the master bedroom, the spare bedroom, spare bathroom, etc. You can come check it out on the show notes page. At this point, I copied the information into another page in my spreadsheet. And again, the spreadsheet is available to you on the show notes page. Looking back, I probably could have started this process in a spreadsheet, but it was really helpful to physically be standing in each room while I was deciding what needed to happen, rather than sitting in my office looking at a screen. I actually really like using a spreadsheet for this because I can change the order of things with the sort function. I can sort the data to group all the projects together. I can also group according to the frequency of how often it needs to be done, which helps me to create my daily, weekly, monthly routines. This page of the spreadsheet got more columns. She has a picture of it you can check out on the show notes page, or I'll just explain what's in the spreadsheet. Columns are labeled as follows. A, list the rooms and or areas in your home. Column B, what needs to be done in this room? I copied and pasted the list from my phone to the spreadsheet. She says I can access my iPhone notes via iCloud.com on my PC. Column C. Is this a project, routine, task, or goal? Projects and tasks were eventually transferred to my Mindsweep/Master Projects list, which is also on her spreadsheet. As a side note, this listing and sorting process works great for your Mindsweep as well. As you start identifying whether the item is a task, and she has a T with parentheses, project, a P in parentheses, routine, an R, or goal, G, you may see patterns or groups emerge that can help as you create your current projects list for the month. Now, if you're not quite sure what your current projects list is or what a Mindsweep is, this is all taught inside of our Steps to Everyday Productivity program. You can check that out at LearnDoBecome.com/step program, all one word, okay? All right, next is column D. How often does it need to be done? Daily, weekly, monthly, etc. Column E, how long does it take? Not sure how long it takes? Time yourself the next few times you do this task. You might be surprised by the actual time frame. Some things don't take as long as you think they do, like making your bed or emptying the dishwasher. Other things take way more time than you think they do, and this is where I sometimes run into frustrations. Column F, when will you do it? Now that you know how long it takes, you can accurately schedule your time to get it done. If you're not the only one living in your home, you could also add a column labeled, who is going to do this? Now, keep in mind that the list of routines is the absolute ideal. There are too many variables in life to be able to hold ourselves to the ideal. So we're just going to focus on doing our best to see that things get done as regularly as possible, whatever regularly is for that routine. I like to look for ways that I can incorporate something naturally into my day without disrupting the flow too much. Here's a few examples. I wear eyeglasses. I clean them each morning with a small bottle of spray cleaner and a lint-free cloth. I can't tell you how many years it took me to realize that while standing in front of my messy bathroom mirror with cleaner and cloth in hand, I could spray the dirty spots on the mirror and wipe them clean with the cloth in my hand. So many years. I can tell you that it's much easier to clean a few water spots each day than it is to have to climb on the counter to clean the entire mirror. I'm short, haha. Example number 2. Quote, mopping, end quote, the bathroom floor. Yes, mopping is in quotations. Here's why. On the day that I switch out the bathroom towels, I throw the wet towel on the tile. Yes, the one I just dried off with after my shower. I step on it and I shuffle it around the room. Is it a perfect clean? No. Is it clean enough and presentable? Yes. Do I need to deep clean the edges? Probably, but not every day or even every week. Example number 3. Watering the plants. I like having plants in the house, but I only seem to notice them when they were wilting away. I created a trigger on my phone to remind me each Friday to water my plants. Now they're thriving because they're not forgotten. Some routines will need a more active approach than what I've just described and will take longer to solidify into your schedule. There are lots of articles on LearnDoBecome.com that address this subject. Here's just one. And she has a link to one called Clean Laundry and a Stocked Fridge, our family's routine. You can find this by either doing a search on our website or just go to the show notes page and we'll link it there. Does this mean that my home is always spotless? Nope. It does mean, however, that I usually feel pretty good about how things are going and I feel comfortable inviting someone into my home. That is key right there. It's never too far from a quick pickup away from clean enough. You'll notice that I haven't included my final routines list. There's a reason for this. Your home and my home are different. Your life and my life are different. My routines are often being tweaked and changed. They're always a work in process, and that's okay. By the way, this process works for more than just routines. You can think through relationships and what they need to thrive. You could even have a conversation with the other person to make sure all the needs are being met. I hope this is helpful. It's amazing to me how much of life and living is covered by routines. I'm finding that the more I'm able to identify and create good routines, the more space I have in my brain to focus on other things that need my attention. Okay, that closes Taryns' post. I love how she put all that together. I also just want to comment on this idea of putting our relationships into this same practice, right? Or this same activity. If you think about each member of your family or each friendship that you want to develop, what are the routines that are needed in order for those relationships to thrive? Like if you have a teenager and you feel like you never see that teenager, okay, could you put maybe a few evenings a week, have a little trigger where you have time to go and sit with that teenager and just hang out, maybe even tuck him or her in bed, right? Or if it's in marriage, are there date nights that maybe aren't happening? Or just time where you're available on a regular basis? Or a getaway once a quarter, or at least on your anniversary or something like that? But when we look and see how are our relationships doing, how is our health doing, how's our home doing, and we're able to create this ideal routines list. That's okay if we don't do the whole thing, but at least it gives our brain a place to record all these things that we want to do on a regular basis. Because I read Taryns' post a few days ago, I've actually been thinking about it a lot in my life. Eric and I had a discussion yesterday where we realized that some things really needed to change for me. I've been taking on a lot of different responsibilities, and as things have really been growing here at LearnDoBecome, I've been getting a little bit panicked because I'm thinking, I don't know how to handle all the growth and I need to set up some new systems. And one of the things that we realized is that I have to prioritize my health. I've been checking email way too often. I've been waking up feeling a little bit stressed, and I've been taking on just too many projects. So part of our conversation was figuring out what to get rid of, which we had a really good talk about that. But then another conversation we had was just talking about, well, what routines could I start or stop? And I'll just share a few that I came up with just in case this is helpful for you. Okay, one of them is I'm going to try, at least for a while, to stop eating at 6 o'clock. For some reason, when I eat after 6, sometimes something upsets my stomach. I have no idea why. And I'm sure you guys probably can know what it is. But like, I don't know. And it's like if I eat anything that's fried or anything that's like off my typical diet, I am just up all night, literally like writhing. So I figured if I can eat my meals during the day that are healthy and the foods that I'm used to eating, and if I just don't eat late at night, I just sleep better. I'm not hungry. I mean, if I'm hungry, I can eat something. But typically, I don't need to eat late at night, and then I just sleep better. So not eating after a certain time. Let's have a little stop time. That's a routine. Drinking tons of water until about 2 p.m. for me, and then not drinking too much late, again, so I don't have to get up in the middle of the night and go to the bathroom. Can you tell there's a little pattern and trying not to interrupt my sleep? I've also known that I need extra sleep on my down days. So typically with my female cycle, there are certain days where I'm just having kind of a down day. I need to plan into my routine that those days I sleep more, because then I'm not going to make really bad decisions on how I'm going to cut everything out of my life. Everything. Okay. Even just things like 10 p.m. bedtime. That's something I'm working on. Okay. A big routine I just started yesterday. I can't even believe I'm saying this on the podcast because this has been really hard for me. I'm only checking email twice a day. I've probably been checking email 20 times a day, maybe. I'm moving that down to twice. I used to check, because I want to see, is everything okay with the business and what's going on and is anything broken? I'm just feeling like I was always panicked. But Eric's kind of checking in on email and he looks into my email account. So if there's anything crazy, someone will text me or Eric will find it. But around 5 p.m., I just don't check my email until 9 a.m. the next morning, even though it's like right there in my pocket and I could. I'm finding that gives me a lot of mental clarity and gives me just space away from feeling like I'm always working. So only checking email a couple times throughout the day, huge. And then scheduling a batch day to record multiple podcasts all at once. That's going to be huge for me too. I'm just starting that. Because if I can batch produce podcasts, then I don't feel like every other day I'm thinking about it and preparing and working up to the wire and sending things out at the very end. So if there's anything that you find you're always doing at the last minute, or it's always stressing you out, or you find you're not sleeping enough, or whatever you're doing is not working, it's really awesome to be able to identify new routines. And then you want to type these or write them out into your routines list. And then you either review that weekly or you post it somewhere where you can see it every day or every week. But hopefully that will be helpful to you like it's been helpful to me. All right, as I get ready to close today's podcast, I just have 4 quick things that I want to share. Number 1, thank you for all of the kind comments and the kind emails that you've been sending. As I open up my heart and share things that are going on behind the scenes here at LearnDoBecome, sometimes I'm just wondering who is listening and do I sound like a crazy lady? And I'm sure I do to many people, but I really have been getting some wonderful emails back from people who are saying, hey, I struggle too. And there's a lot of good that all of us can do together, even though we're not perfect. And even though we're working against a lot of resistance in some cases, our work is making a difference and let's keep moving forward. And I love that. And I appreciate it so, so much. As you are thinking about the podcast, and if you're thinking, I think this would help other people who perhaps want to get out of the clutter and overwhelm and who also want to architect lives of excellence, we would so appreciate it if you would leave a review on iTunes to just share your thoughts on the podcast. But I don't want you necessarily sharing what you like about me or Eric or what we're saying. I would love for you to share something that you have done in your life as a result of the podcast. So instead of the reviews being like, hey, April and Eric are fantastic, which we're not asking you to say that, I would love for you to share, I got this idea while I was listening to this episode, and you can share which episode it was, and then share something that you did that helped move your life in a really positive direction. Because as I've been thinking about our podcast and thinking about what I want it to become, it's not something that's trying to build up me and Eric. It's a place where our community can really come together and learn, do, and become, and celebrate each other's growth. So if you don't mind just taking a moment, usually if you just open up your podcast app, it gives you a chance to rate and review. We would so appreciate it. All right, number 2. We are working towards these 25,000 command centrals. And what's so funny is as I'm working on it, I keep thinking, what am I thinking? This is a whole lot. If we're collecting photos, that's 25,000 photos. That's a whole lot of photos. So we're actually looking behind the scenes to figure out a really simple process where people could actually go into our website and log in and upload the photo, and how it could automatically send an alert so that it can go out on social media and we can prepare that. Anyway, there's just a whole process behind it. But I'm so excited, and people are already sending in their photos. On the show notes page, we'll include a couple. We got one the other day where they sent in, they're like, okay, what number am I? I'm like, I don't even know what number you are. I know we have a lot, but I don't know yet. So we need to figure it out. I'm just thrilled. And I really appreciate your enthusiasm and your support. And I love when I get an email or comment that says, I'm going to be one of the 25,000. I love it because it's going to change your life. And ultimately, it's going to change the world because you have awesome things to do and you're going to have the brain space to be able to do it. So I'm thrilled about that. We've created a page, and it's not going to necessarily be fancy yet, but it's LearnDoBecome.com/step 25K. So like step 25,000, step 25K. You can come to that page and find out what we're doing and see photos and find out how you can be a part of it. So go check that out. We'll also have that linked on the show notes page, the /episode 48. So you can just go there if that's easier. All right, number 3, I want to talk for just a moment about outcome resistance and process resistance. Just a quick concept, maybe it deserves its own podcast. But as you've been listening today and thinking about establishing your routines list, or as you hear me talk about building a whole command central, part of you might get a little panicked and you might think, I don't know if I can do this. So I've been learning about outcome resistance, which means that we're afraid to do something because we actually don't want the outcome for one reason or another. Like, let's say, getting your routines established. You might think, actually, I don't really want to get more organized because if I do, then I'm going to have to move at a faster pace, or I won't have any excuse as to why I'm not doing things because everything will be totally clear. Or then I'll just feel like I'm a failure even more because I'll see this list in front of me, right? There might be some reason why you don't want the outcome. So really identifying those reasons and looking deep to figure out, is there something I'm afraid of? Even things like growing the podcast and growing LearnDoBecome and stepping into my mission here, helping build these 25,000 command centrals. I have outcome resistance because part of me is thinking, the more people that we help, the more I need to stand up and be a leader. And that feels scary for me. Or the more emails we're going to receive, or the more technical glitches we might experience if people are having trouble sending things in, stuff like that. So it's really important for us to look at where we may have some outcome resistance and actually think about it a little bit more deeply and consider what it is that's really stopping us. Okay, but then there's also process resistance, which is where we tell ourselves, oh, it's just going to be too hard. I'm going to be stressed out while I'm doing it, and it's going to feel hard, and I'm going to be in pain, I'm going to be anxious or whatever. And on my end, I have a lot of process resistance where I think, oh, it's just going to be tricky to manage this project, or I'm going to feel like I'm stressed in the middle of it, something like that. So I've learned that by getting out a piece of paper and writing down any reason why the process wouldn't be enjoyable or why the outcome wouldn't be desirable, it's helpful for me to look at that. In fact, a lot of therapists will say, after they look at your outcome resistance and process resistance, they'll kind of use reverse psychology and say, well, you have a lot of good reasons why you wouldn't want to improve this. So maybe we don't. Maybe you don't want to do this. And then you have to actually convince the therapist to help you and say, no, I do. I do want it. Or you have to convince yourself, yeah, this actually is a really good idea. Establishing a routines list, sure, it might be a little hard. And sure, I might feel like I'm a failure sometimes, but it's going to help me to actually get some order and some structure and some clarity on all the stuff I'm doing so I don't feel like I'm living in a whirlwind anymore. I tell you, I've been doing a routines list for more than 10 years now. I don't look at it like a to-do list. I look at it like Taryn mentioned, it's the ideal, but it's okay if I don't do it all because I won't. I'm human. But having my routines list totally organized and, of course, having my command central built, that's what enables me to breathe, to have a calm mind, to enjoy my family. Like if I'm taking a shower and the water's warm and I'm just happy, I can just sit there and just enjoy. When I'm going to bed at night, I can just lay there or I can listen to a podcast or an audiobook or something and I'm not stressed. This is what I want for you, is to be able to have that peace of mind. It feels so good. Okay, fourth final thing is a concept from a book called Anti-Fragile. I've only read a portion of the book, but there's one little chapter that was talking about post-traumatic growth. Okay, I'm just going to read a little bit from this paragraph. So it says, I was sitting in the office of David Halpern, a UK government advisor and policymaker. He informed me, in response to the idea of anti-fragility, of a phenomenon called post-traumatic growth, the opposite of post-traumatic stress syndrome, by which people harmed by past events surpass themselves. Okay, say that part again. Listen to that part again. By which people who were harmed by past events surpass themselves. I had never heard about it before, and to my great shame had never made the effort to think of its existence. There is a small literature, but it is not advertised outside a narrow discipline. We hear about the more lurid post-traumatic disorder. You've probably heard a lot of people talk about that. Oh, post-traumatic stress, post-traumatic disorder. I'm so overwhelmed. I was in an accident, or I was in an abusive relationship, or I had some awful thing happen, and it's this post-traumatic disorder, but not post-traumatic growth in the intellectual and so-called learned vocabulary. So this is just something that the whole book is talking about. Anti-fragile basically means you picture a package coming to you that says fragile. That means don't shake it, right? Picture a package coming to you saying anti-fragile. Please shake it. Like as you shake it, it gets better. And as you think about your life that way, as I shake up my life and as challenges come, I get better. Or like as the wind blows really hard against this little tree, that tree gets stronger. This post-traumatic growth, as you go through something that you would totally describe as a trauma, then you get stronger and braver, and you think, I can really handle a lot. This is happening to you as you are getting out of clutter, as you're creating order, as you're architecting this life of excellence, as you're building a family. It's not easy work, and I just want you to know that I'm going through the same kinds of things that you are. My challenges might be different. Like, for example, I don't have any piles in my life right now. Like, all of my piles could be cleaned in about 5 minutes, which I love. But I have other problems. I still feel anxious when I think about the future. I still feel like I need to be a people pleaser in a lot of ways. I still worry sometimes about if I'm raising all my kids right. There's a lot of things that I worry about. And I wake up feeling kind of stressed sometimes about certain things. Not the piles and not the lists, but I'm not quite where I want to be yet in every area of my life. But I honestly believe that as we look at things as anti-fragile, as we look at post-traumatic growth, as we overcome this outcome resistance or process resistance, and as we actually come together as a community to learn best practices and help one another, there are amazing things that are going to happen. I would love for you to visit our show notes page. Remember, it's LearnDoBecome.com/episode 48. Come visit, check out the links. If you do not yet have your routines list in place, go ahead and click on Taryn's Google Sheet. You can press, I think it's like file and save a copy or something like that. You can make a copy of any Google Sheet that you have access to. And then you can edit it to work for your life. What a great way to get started. Thank you so much. Have an amazing day, and we will see you soon at LearnDoBecome.com.